Helen's sensible shoes betrayed her. One misstep on Auckland's bustling waterfront sent her sprawling into a kaleidoscope of art fair vibes. 65, she'd planned to fade quietly into retirement's background. But fate, in a rogue paintbrush rolling toward her, had other ideas. Knees smarting, pride bruised, she stared up canvases alive with color, each stroke whispering what if. Around her, artists laughed, bartered, lived. Grit kicked in. That fallen brush? Hers now. Time to paint a new story. Helen's sensible shoes betrayed her. One misstep on Auckland's rain-slicked footpath sent her sprawling, knees meeting pavement with a thud that echoed like her mother's old biscuit tin hitting linoleum. 65 years of competence dissolved in that clumsy second. Strangers rushed to help, but their pity stung worse than scraped palms. Back home, she stared blank walls where teaching certificates once hung, fingers tracing chipped handle of a paintbrush tucked in a drawer, relic of girlhood dreams drowned out by mortgage payments and marking essays. A flyer for community art therapy fluttered against her mailbox like a dare. First session, Helen gripped that brush like a lifeline, strokes hesitant as a newborn lamb's legs. Colors bled together, messy yet alive. Weeks passed. Her hands remembered what her heart forgot, how joy hummed in creation, not just productivity. Groups' laughter over botched watercolors became medicine, their shared vulnerability stitching Hull's retirement tour in her identity. When local art fair announced open submissions, Helen's pulse raced like she'd chugged flat white espresso. Her piece, a wild tangle of pohutukua blooms against stormy skies, wasn't technically perfect. But vibes? Raw as sea wind whipping Tamaki Drive. Opening night, strangers paused before her canvas, murmuring yes, this. That quiet resonance drowned out decades of inner critics. Standing there, paint-flecked sleeves rolled up, Helen finally heard it, not clock ticking, but ocean's restless song, same one that carried her ancestors' waka to shore. Purpose, she realized, wasn't something lost, just waiting to be remixed. Helen's sensible shoes betrayed her. One misstep on Auckland's rain-slicked pavement sent her sprawling toward a storefront window. Instead of shame, she felt a jolt of curiosity. Behind smudged glass, a riot of colors beckoned, a community art studio buzzing with retirees wielding brushes like wands. A hand reached down to help her up, its owner grinning beneath a paint-flecked sunhat. "Welcome to chaos," woman said, as if she had arrived exactly when meant to. Inside, vibes were less stuffy gallery and more kindergarten on espresso. Creator hesitated, clutching her purse like armor. 65 years of spreadsheets hadn't prepared her for this. But then, a blank canvas, a brush thrust into her palm. No rules, someone called. First strokes were timid, muddied. Yet with each clumsy swirl, something loosened in her chest. Weeks blurred. Mornings once spent scrolling news feeds now dripped with acrylics. Helen learned to mix cerulean from cobalt, to let imperfections stay. Her mentor, a former engineer who sculpted driftwood into whimsical birds, nudged her toward bolder choices. Retirement's just rebranding, she'd wink. Then came whispers of an art fair, local creators, one-night show. Helen's pulse spiked. But doubt crept in. Who'd care about a novice's daubs? Yet her brush had become more than tool. It was a compass, pointing her toward forgotten joy. She signed up. Night of event, wind whipped through Wynyard Quarters tents. Helen's pieces, vibrant seascapes inspired by childhood summers, hung between a potter's mugs and a teen's neon graffiti. Strangers paused, leaned in. One woman, fingers tracing a wave's curve, murmured, "Feels like home." Helen's throat tightened. This wasn't about mastery. It was about echoes of herself, of others, colliding in color. Walking back, she spotted her reflection in a puddle, a woman splattered in gold, still stumbling, but now toward something. Helen's sensible shoes betrayed her. One misstep on Auckland's rain-slicked footpath sent her sprawling, knees barking against concrete. 65 years of dignity, gone in a graceless flail. Grocery bags skittered, apples rolling like wayward marbles. A passing teen scooped them up with effortless cool, tossing her in no worries, mate that stung worse than scraped palms. Back home, ice pack pressed to throbbing pride, she glared blank walls where corporate accolades once hung. Retirement had promised freedom, but delivered something fuzzier, an itch under skin, a restlessness no gardening or book club could scratch. Then came pamphlet, art therapy for new beginnings. Helen scoffed. She hadn't held a paintbrush since primary school, unless counting that disastrous attempt to touch up kitchen cabinets. First session smelled of turpentine and vulnerability. Others hunched over canvases with focus Helen envied. Her own strokes were shaky, colors clashing like bad wallpaper. Instructor praised her bold energy, which felt suspiciously like pity. Yet something nagged. A stubbornness that once closed boardroom deals now made her mix midnight blue into sunrise hues, just to see what happened. Weeks passed. Bruises faded. Paint-stained sweatpants became her uniform. She learned to love mess, way mistakes could blur into something interesting if she stopped fighting them. Local art fairs, once just weekend distractions, became research. She studied how light caught Waitemata Harbor dawn, how Pohutukawa blossoms bled red against green. Then flyer, community art show, all skill levels welcome. Helen's gut said absolutely not. Hands remembered spilled apples, snickering teens. But that stubborn push, one that built a career, raised kids solo, whispered try. Submission day, she clutched her canvas like a shield. It wasn't perfect. Brush strokes were uneven in places, colors louder than intended. But it vibrated with something honest, a woman relearning her edges. When judges pinned a ribbon to her work, honorable mention, Helen didn't cry. She laughed, loud enough to startle a nearby sculptor. 65, and she'd just begun. Helen's sensible shoes betrayed her. One misstep on Auckland's rain-slicked pavement sent her sprawling, but not before her paintbrush clattered onto concrete. Its bristles splayed like a startled starfish. A passing skateboarder tossed it back with a grin, unaware that stubby tool would soon become her unlikely lifeline. 6 weeks into retirement, woman had mastered art of pretending busyness, rearranging teacups, alphabetizing spice racks, until monotony gnawed holes in her resolve. Then came community center flyer, art therapy for new beginnings. Skepticism prickled. She'd last held a brush in primary school, crafting lopsided daisies that earned a C-. Still, desperation outweighed dignity. First session, she fumbled. Watercolors bled outside lines, her sunset resembled a squashed pumpkin. Others murmured encouragement, but silver-haired Margaret, local quilting queen, eyed Helen's mess with thinly veiled amusement. Abstract, she declared, slapping page upright. A teen volunteer snorted into her hoodie. Then, inspiration struck mid-yawn during a lecture on color theory. She swiped her brush across a fresh sheet, blending cobalt and burnt umber in reckless strokes. No plan, just pulse. What emerged wasn't pretty, a stormy seascape, jagged and raw, but it vibrated with something honest. Margaret paused mid-stitch. News of a pop-up art fair lit a fuse. Helen's hand shook signing up, yet she carted her piece downtown, propping it on a folding table between ceramic gnomes and beeswax candles. Doubt whispered, "Who buys retiree doodles?" Then a blogger, hunting undiscovered vibes, snapped a photo. By afternoon, her inbox chimed. A gallery owner wanted 3 more works. These, she gushed, have texture. Opening night, Helen stood flanked by strangers dissecting her brushwork. Margaret materialized, clutching a checkbook. "Never thought I'd say this," she muttered, "but save me that one with weird swirls." Laughter rippled through crowd. Helen's chest swelled. That battered paintbrush, once a joke, now a bridge, had dragged her into light. As applause rose, she exhaled. No more pretending. Canvas called, and for first time in years, 65 felt less like an expiration date and more like a fresh layer of gesso, ready for whatever bold color came next. Helen's sensible shoes had betrayed her once, but her paintbrush never would. That wobbly Auckland curb became a turning point, not into frailty, but bold strokes on blank canvases. 6 months after retirement, she traded boardroom heels for splattered sneakers, her Auckland apartment now a riot of half-finished landscapes and a stubborn habit of humming ABBA while mixing cerulean. Community center art therapy sessions weren't just healing, they sparked mischief. Helen rallied fellow brush bandits, a silver-haired squad of former accountants, teachers, a plumber who painted surreal faucets, to hijack a drab church hall for their first show. Posters slapped up fish markets, libraries, even a yoga studio's kombucha fridge. Opening night buzzed with mismatched vibes. Teens in crop tops debating abstract textures, grandkids gaping Nana's neon seascape, a food critic nibbling samosas near Helen's Wanderlust 65 series. Her symbol had grown, no longer just a tool, but a bridge. Guiding shaky hands to blend gradients, she watched Jeanette, 78, sell a crooked but charming vase, crowing, "Who knew my shaky hands were impressionist?" By closing night, they'd fundraised for youth art supplies, proving creativity had no expiration date. Helen's new life wasn't about filling time, it was igniting it. Every stroke whispered, "Unfinished is fabulous. Grab that brush, smear your joy where world can see."